guys, this is Malorian and this is Warmachine 101. And today what I want to talk about is a rule called ambush. Now ambush is one of these rules that's not really on a lot of different cards. You hardly ever see it, and that's why I thought it'd be nice to really cover this, because when it comes up it can be a really big deal and a really big advantage, and something that a lot of people I think kind of underjudge and don't kind of undervalue. So first of all, what actually is it? I'm going to read it here off the card, and it says ambush. You can choose not to deploy this unit at the start of the game. If it is not deployed normally, you can put it into play at the end of your control phase after the first turn. When you do, choose any table edge except the back of your opponent's deployment zone. Place all models in this unit in formation within 3 inches of the chosen board edge. So what this really means is that, really what it says to start off with, is that this unit that you take, or units, you get a multiple like this, they don't even start on deployed. They're going to be starting off the board, and then sometime after the first turn, you just decided in the control phase, yep, they're coming in. And then you pick one of the board edges, of course can't be theirs from the very back, and then you just deploy them, 3 inches out, and then they get to activate that turn. Now, a lot of people, when they see these models, typically they have worse stats. And so it's like, oh, these are pretty garbage. A very great example of this is Cossite Woodsman. These are a Kador unit that you almost never see, and it's like, oh, well, why would you ever take these Cossite Woodsmen? They're pretty much garbage. Just throw them to the side. But there are some major advantages to this ambush that a lot of people just don't see. So let's cover those now. The first one is that a lot of times people can just forget about ambush. Like we said, these things are not deployed on the board. A lot of times some people will actually put them back in a corner, but really, they could be off in your bag. They could be like on a different table. They really should not be on the board whatsoever. They're not deployed. And so, as an opponent, if you're not seeing the models, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind, and you just might forget these things are actually there. Meaning that you have the element of surprise. These people aren't really being careful to stop how effective these guys could be, and then they can be really hit by this. The next real advantage that some people kind of forget from this is that 3 inches is kind of 4 inches. And why that is because it's not completely within 3 inches. It is just within 3 inches. So again, if this is 3 inches, I could be putting the model here. As long as it kind of touches that 3 inches, it can go right there. And again, that just gives it that much extra threat, because from that point, they could charge, they could be doing they could do an aim if they're close enough, they could be running somewhere, and so that extra threat can be a really big deal. Now, from this position, there's a lot of different things they can do. One of the things they can do is actually just attack things. So they can be there, also it's like, oh no, I forgot about ambushers, and they get to just charge in or shoot or whatever they want. And I guess something to mention right now too is just that how flexible this is. I could go from the left flank, I could go from the right flank. Hell, if I don't think that either of those are really going to be helpful, they can just come from my own board edge, and they can run up and they can get into position. But normally, I hardly ever see that being the real advantage. It's normally going to be one flank or the other. So that flexibility is a really big deal. Something that I've caught often with my Bog Trog ambushers is something like Raptors, or something that's usually a flanking force, or maybe a Death Stalker or something like that, and then these guys just charge in, catch them off guard, and also it's like, wow, I did not expect to be charged, and it's a really big deal. Now, with this, another part of it too is the way that the stats can be better than what it shows. So, for example, Bog Trogs are a little bit different, where they also have powerful charge, but because you get to deploy them anywhere you really want there, you get to deploy behind where the models are and put them in the back arc. Well, all of a sudden then, their mat and their rat is +2. So that's a really big deal. When you're looking at the card and you're looking at stats, it's like, oh, that's pretty pitiful stats. Keep in mind that these will be at +2 a lot of times because you'll be in that back arc. Now, in the case of, say, like the Cossite Woodsman, where they have the bows and all the rest of it, that could also be an aim. You could be looking at +4 as you're in the back arc and you're aiming, and all of a sudden, pew pew pew, it's pretty easy to hit. And a lot of people just don't really see that. Another part you can really look at this here is the whole idea where this could be a great one for scenario. So where, let's say it's incursion, you could be going for one flag or the other as you need it. If you are fighting over something like outflank where there's the two big circles, hey, if it looks like I'm going to be failing on that circle over there, okay, they're going to ambush in and make like a little ring over there where they're contesting. And I could slowly feed them in there too. A lot of time ambushers, you'll see that they'll have something, well, there's not many ambushers like we said, but if we're looking at the bog trogs or the woodsmen, you know, they're going to have pathfinder, they're going to have advantages for being inside woods and stuff, and so they can just kind of hide and then feed into that deployment zone slowly to really help contest it. Or, like we said, maybe it's a flag that they can just completely jump on and start to score. So that can be a really helpful thing to do. Another thing is that while you're behind the lines, this is normally a very great way to get at support staff. I mean, sure, if you can take out raptors or something really key like that, that's amazing, but a lot of times stuff like choir and you know, all these little support models in the back, shepherds, they're usually pretty hard to get to. But if you have these models in the back, well, that makes it a lot easier to get behind the lines when you just start there. Now, the advantage doesn't have to be just when they run on. I mean, if they know that you're coming in and they're deploying more in the middle, that's not the end of the world. What it really means is that you can go and run into a better position. And this is where, again, because it's not happening on the exact same turn, this can be really missed. Now again, let's say you're playing against Menoth and they got their choir, but they're more in the center of the board. They're not worried about bog trogs until they start basically 4 inches in, and then they get to run to a better location, and now it's like, wow, they threaten a lot. And this can really change the whole way that the flow battle will go, because whereas they thought they're going to move up as a big group, now they have to kind of change to defend against this, and you can really threaten a lot of the board where they're going to have to kind of stop and kind of deal with you. And this is another part of why they're so great, is that they almost sometimes don't need to kill anything. Sometimes just by being there and being annoying, they can just get their worth, right? Hell, they might have to turn around and send some guys after you to kill you, but if they do that, well, guess what? Those models that turned around and went back to deal with that threat are now not contributing to the main fight in the middle. So that's fantastic. That's just what you want. Now, past this, you could also just use them just to bog things down. Let's say that, oh man, they're about to charge me with this unit and this would be horrendous. Well, all of a sudden your bog trogs or whatever run in and they're going to get in there. They can engage from the rear. It's like, okay, you got two choices. Either you can keep moving and take free strikes, or you can turn around and deal with us, but then, yeah, you didn't charge and you're positioning, so have to be very careful not to show now your back arc to the rest of my force. So a very great thing you can have there. And something else to keep in mind is that you don't need to use this on turn 2. There's no way you can use it on turn 1. You can use it on turn 2, but you know what? Sometimes holding that card, holding these guys in reserve, just the threat of it can be still very controlling. Because like we said, if you're the person facing ambushers and you know that they have ambushers coming, you're going to deploy more centrally. Well, if you do on turn 2 and you charge in there and you do whatever, also now they can relax. They know they can kind of move over here and be safe. If you keep these guys in hand, now it's like, okay, well, turn 3, they gotta be careful. Turn 4, you know, the whole game, they're having to be a lot more careful, a lot more combined together, a lot more compacted, and just that alone can be a big benefit to you depending what the situation is. So there you go, that's ambush. Realize that it is kind of rare. The models I can only think of that have them right now are the Cossite Woodsman. We have the Bog Trogs. You can see them on the Sword Knights with the tier from the Bad Seeds, and as well now the new Strider unit, whatever it's called, from Legion as well. But I mean, more could be coming in either from on the card or for tiers, so look out for them. If you're an opponent, you don't know that, like, okay, is there anything on Ambush that's not starting on here? And for yourself, if you're using them, really try and get the most from it, because it is a very powerful ability. So there you go. There's Ambush, and thanks for watching. Bye.